What's happening, gang? Live back in the stash. My man Jeff. Jeff, always keeping it fresh, brother. I appreciate you for that. And I appreciate you guys for hanging out in the stash with us right now. We got your 11 to 12 o'clock hour here every Tuesday on ESPN Radio 1700. And in the house today, we got our man Kevin Cadora. You can catch him, by the way, at faircadora.com. He's holding down all things family law, all things divorce. You know, we need someone for it, right, Kevin?
We do, unfortunately. We
do. And in that space, I will even take it a step further and say, not only do we need people who do that, but we need good people who are shepherding that conversation. I said it earlier, if you missed it, that we, unfortunately, from our perspective of helping folks get into and out of homes, watch this all too often where it's too far downstream and it's a big, nasty fight, and nothing beautiful grows if there's not a good structure and potentially some leadership further upstream to be able to help people make sure they make educated decisions when they are breaking up. Because guess what? You said it earlier. People break up.
That's right.
50% of the time, I think I heard you say it. So, first segment, you shared with us a little bit more about how you guys see yourself differently from everyone else. It's actually in your slogan, Divorce Done Differently. And then we got into, like, what are the complex legal issues about why you need someone who does what you do in the first place. But now I want to get even a little further into the nuts and bolts. And you heard me set up before the break about prenups, postnups, domestic violence. I mean, these are things no one wants to talk about, right?
That's right.
That's why we got you, brother.
That's right.
So lay it on us. Like, I'm asking to go into the whole depths of everything, but like, give us a little lesson in each one of these things. So what about prenups first?
Well, prenups are very, very complicated. They're agreements that are made before marriage that confirms that separate property will remain separate property regardless of what happens during the marriage. Income will remain separate property. You can waive spouse support in a prenup, meaning that if you were married for 30 years, if you have this prenup that waives properly spouse support, you won't get it. So if someone wants, or if your spouse or soon-to-be spouse is looking to execute a prenup, you definitely want to at least talk to an attorney because you may be giving up valuable rights. The good thing is you can't give up child support. You can't give up custody or visitation. But financial issues, financial rights, you can definitely give them up by way of a prenup. So very important to talk to a competent attorney about those.
Yeah, and how awkward is that to begin with? I mean, you do this. Like, is it weird when someone comes in and they're like in love and their romance is just peaking and beaming and they're getting ready to throw down nuptials and they're like, okay, let's get into the prenup. Like, what's that like?
It's actually not as awkward as you may think because typically when someone wants to enter a prenup, there is one of the spouses is an extremely high earner or has a lot of property. Typically, our prenups involve parties where one party has at least a net worth of over $1 million and the other party has nothing. And without a prenup, if you contribute to those things during the marriage, then the outed spouse is entitled to a reimbursement or their interest in that property. So it's not as awkward as you may think because it's basically just a business transaction.
But that's what's awkward about it.
Well, from my point of view, it's not that awkward. I have had both sides come into my office, and every single prenup that I've done, both sides seem to be okay with it. Mm-hmm. In fact, they have to be okay with it, otherwise it invalidates the prenup. So it's not, I think, probably broaching the discussion between the spouses. When that goes down, that's probably pretty awkward. But when they come into my office, that's probably 2 or 3 weeks after the initial conversation. So,
but what do you juxtapose that a little bit? Because you just said something a little bit earlier, and I heard you say it again right now, which is that if that person owns the $1 million before the marriage, then does the new spouse really have rights to it?
Potentially. And
so say more about that.
To give you an easy example, let's say a spouse comes into a marriage with $1 million of assets, and then at the end of the marriage, without a prenup, the total estate is worth $2 million.
Oh, I see.
And all of it came from the investments of this party's separate property that they brought into the marriage. Without a prenup, the first $1 million goes to the spouse who brought it in, but the other spouse will get half of the $1 million.
Of what was gained.
Exactly, $500,000.
You know, but gosh, I don't know, man. I call me old school, call me lame sauce. I wish I had a little button here that gave me my own lame sauce button. But like, you know, if there's kids involved, right? And let's say that the couple has kids, Okay, and then so the wife, for example, I'm not trying to be gender specific. Let's just say the wife is the homemaker and full-time job and the whole kid thing, right? And the other money earner, income earner, primary income earner is the one who's doing all the money. Does that not then? I mean, that's kind of fair? Wouldn't you say? I mean, because without the wife taking care of the kid and stuff, I mean, then what?
Well, Jesse, I'll tell you something. Fair shows up nowhere in the family code. It shows up nowhere in family court. There's nothing that is fair about family court. In fact, it's inherently unfair, even without prenups. We as attorneys, I actually work as a settlement conference judge for the family court to help people resolve their issues. If both parties walk out thinking that they have lost, that it's been a completely unfair deal, then I've done my job, because that's what a good settlement is about. Not one party getting everything or one party losing everything, but both parties basically losing equal. And it's sometimes very unfair. So,
well, hey, hallelujah. I guess that's why we need Prenups. But what about postnups? This is something you don't hear a lot.
Yeah, postnups is actually when parties want to change the characterization of property, either from community to separate or separate to community, or from separate to separate. And it's pretty rare. More often than not, we see it in the real estate context when parties will do an interspousal transfer deed during marriage and transfer title over into the other party's name as a joint tenant, or as husband and wife with the right of survivorship. So we see it, and that's a transmutation, and that's kind of like a postnup. It's actually what's called a transmutation, changing the characterization of the property. But we do see it in that context. But as far as an actual written agreement, it's pretty rare, but it does happen.
And then the one that no one likes talking about, which is domestic violence, and then, of course, more appropriately, like restraining orders. Yeah,
very close to my heart is restraining orders and domestic violence restraining orders. We prosecute them vigorously, especially when children are involved.
Yeah,
I have a running theme in my practice, and that's kids. I have 4 kids, and they're why I do what I do.
Yeah.
So when kids are involved in domestic violence, they see it, they hear it. I want to make sure that it stops immediately. And so it's very important that people have good representation and make sure that those restraining orders are properly prosecuted.
It's good stuff, man. I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot to me. That also that resonates deeply with me as well. So, we're riffing on this whole concept of, I guess, services provided, you might say, getting down kind of into the weeds a little bit. Anything else I'm kind of leaving out of that?
Well, I mean, we do provide, the standard divorce, legal separation. That is a petition that we file. There's also the nullity.
Nullity? Okay, what's that?
Nullity is actually where the court makes a finding that the marriage never existed to begin with.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, like if they were married too short of a time or something?
No, actually, duration of marriage is not the grounds for nullity, but if they are related.
Oh, come on. Get out of here.
Brother, sister, parent, child, grandparent, grandchild, and
you're lying to me if you're telling me you've seen this.
I have seen it.
No,
I have seen it. The incestuous marriage, it's invalid. It's invalid per se. The bigamous marriage, kind of like what you see on True Love on HBO, that would be grounds for a nullity here in California. But a really big one, especially in San Diego, is when a party gets married for purposes of immigration. And one of the things that we see a lot is that they get married and the immigrant spouse got married specifically so that she could get, or he could get, U.S. citizenship. So we invalidate on those grounds.
When we invited Kevin Cadora, owner of Fair Cadora Law Group, into the show today to talk about this, we never could have possibly imagined that we were going to talk about incest.
Surely you can't be serious.
I think I am serious, actually. And don't call me Shirley either. But you want to call probably Kevin, I would imagine, if this is something you're going through. By the way, what is your phone number, Kevin?
619-255-8500.
That's 619-255-8500, or you can catch him online at faircadora.com. Dude, really? We just went there right now.
Nothing surprises me.
We just went there with Kevin in the house.
It's good times.
Hey, that's Stash. That's what you got, Stash Nation. That's why we're bringing it live, I guess, with some cool local people talking about some cool local stuff. I don't know if we can call that cool. But coming back, we're going to talk about something cool, I promise you, and it's about giving back. Now, you already heard Kevin talk about his Children at Risk program, but there's 4 other programs that are near and dear to his heart that are germane to this conversation. And if you or someone you know is going through it, you're going to want to hear what 4 programs Kevin's talking about right after the break. Real Talk Radio San Diego. We'll be right back.